So, we are going to focus right now just on the first case of the Mishnah because that's what we're unpacking. First case of the Mishnah, two people walk into a basin. They're holding on to this garment, which we're calling a tallis, and each person claims that it is theirs. In the first understanding that the Gemorah offered about what this Mishnah was trying to tell us, the Gemorah wanted to say, well, it's actually one scenario, and it's a fight about these two guys who found this tallis in the road or wherever, and now they're each saying, it's mine. How did it get to be mine? Well, that's because I found it. But now we're at the next stage of the Gemorah. The next stage of the Gemorah says, no. A Mishnah is very precise. And if a Mishnah said that this person says, I found it, and this person said, I found it, and then the Mishnah continues, this person says it's all mine, and this person says it's all mine. If the Mishnah did it like that, split it, it means it's actually two cases. So what are the two cases? We're at this point saying that the first case is a case of Metzia, where people found the tallis and they're arguing over ownership. And the second case is where two people claim they bought a tallis. And that's a whole different argument. Now, we haven't yet really unpacked how that argument could work, because we kind of touched on it last time. Like, how is it possible that you've got people who claim equally that they bought something? I mean, surely when you're talking about money and transactions, there's got to be checks and balances. Surely you'd know who bought it. So we'll come back to that and understand exactly how it could happen. But at this point, we are delving into what we call the tzricha. That's the key that we're dealing with now. Tzricha. So what tzricha means is this. Tzricha comes from the word tzarich, which means necessary. Tzricha in Aramaic, or specifically in Gemorah language, means the whole nature of how this was put together is necessary. Now, implied in saying that something is necessary is obviously you thought it wasn't, right? That's why if I'm telling you something is necessary, you obviously thought it was unnecessary. You obviously thought it was superfluous. Now, in our Mishnah, that makes sense. If it's true that the Mishnah is telling us the same law, but there are two scenarios that conclude with the same law, that sounds superfluous. Like, ultimately, you're just telling me, if people are arguing over ownership, this is how you deal with it. Why do I have to know if they got to that ownership through finding something in the street, or if they got to that ownership through buying it? What's the difference? The point you want to tell me is if there's a conflict around ownership, and there's no clear way to prove one or the other, this is how you deal with it. So that's why the Gemorah is saying, tzricha, you have to give me both cases. And the reason you have to give me both cases is because had the Mishnah only given the one case, I would have assumed that the law only applies in the one case. And then I would have explained why the law only applies in that one case. So that's where we are now. And what's the explanation that you would have used? Human psychology. In other words, we believe that people are biased in their own favor. I don't know if you believe this, but that's what the Gemorah believes. People are biased in their own favor. And because of that bias, people develop blind spots around their own ethics, values, and morals. So it's like I often say, when people come to either a rabbi or a mediator or wherever it is to arbitrate some kind of a conflict, so people come in and they're literally ready to tear each other apart. And in that same conversation, where they are ripping each other to shreds, in that same conversation they say, but Rabbi, I'm not a bad person. Now, this is not a judgment of whether they're a bad person or not. It's just an illustration of how we have blind spots about ourselves and our values. Or people say, I'm a very honest person, and then behave in a way that's not honest. So we have blind spots, and that's exactly what the Gemorah is analyzing over here, that it's lucrative. There are things that you could get from these scenarios. There's this tallis that's up for grabs, and I feel that I have the right to the tallis, and I might skew my sense of morality because of the circumstances without thinking I'm a bad person, and therefore take the tallis for myself. So that's what we learned last week. Anybody remember what the rationalization was for the guy who is holding onto a tallis that potentially the other person found first? What would be his rationalization for saying, actually it's mine? He's not going to lose anything. Because one of the things that we really don't want to ever do in life is we don't want to be the reason that somebody else has lost money. That's bordering on the edge of theft. That's already an uncomfortable experience, right? That's an uncomfortable experience, right? To believe that you've taken money from somebody else. That's, I don't want to be a thief. But here, I'm not taking anything from anybody. This guy just found something. It's a windfall for him. I'm going to share the good luck. Whereas, if the Torah told me if the Mishnah told me in that case, you got to take these guys to the courts. The courts have to make them take an oath. Taking an oath is a very serious business. And the nature of the oath is that it's going to force the truth out of somebody. I understand why you need to squeeze the truth out of somebody, because he might rationalize an untrue perspective. But if it's a purchase, which means the other guy's paid money, we don't imagine that somebody's going to think, I have the rights to something you paid for. We don't assume that. So that explains why the Mishnah, after telling us the case of the two people fighting over what they found, also had to tell me the case of the two people fighting over something they bought. Now we're at the point where the Gemorah is going to have to say, what about the other way around? In other words, why didn't the Mishnah just say, two guys walk into the Beis Din, they're holding on to a Tallis. This guy says, I bought it. That guy says, I bought it. In which case we believe, wow, it's unlikely that the guy's willing to rip out a purchase from somebody else's hand after he's paid the money. And yet we're making him take an oath. Obviously, in a case where they say, I found it, there's likelihood that a person would rationalize grabbing it. And we certainly should make them take an oath. Right? That's what we're going to have to explain in this case. Well, there's another psychology at play over here, where, believe it or not, a person may have an easier time rationalizing grabbing something somebody's paying for quicker than grabbing something somebody found. So let's see if we could work this out before we actually read it. So we're going to do this in the following steps. Right? First, we're going to just try to work out what goes through a person's mind. Then we'll go through the vocab, and then we'll actually read it inside. I'm saying, if I know that the other person bought something, how would I rationalize yanking it away from him and claiming it as mine?
So this is not the situation. Both throw $50 down at the same time.
Okay, so that's technical, right? Mm-hmm. That's technical. I'm not at that point yet. I want to understand the machinations of the person's mind. What goes through somebody's mind to believe that I have the rights to yank something away from a guy who paid?
You didn't see that other person buy it.
Didn't see him buy it, then I'm not yanking it away from him. Right?
The person who bought it for you claim is not the owner.
Okay, that's a real stretch. In other words, you
bought it, but the guy you bought it from is not the
correct. So if you're saying that the person you bought it from, then you've got another whole court case running over here. Let's keep it simple. We're talking about two people who are arguing over this item. These are the two people in conflict. And what is the rationalization? Yeah. So what's the rationalization? To think, who owes me? The other guy. The other guy owes me. Oh, that's a nice one. Okay, that's a nice one. So that customer owes me money. I've been unable to get the money from him, and I'm using this opportunity. Okay, fine. That I could see as a way that a person would rationalize that it's acceptable to yank something away. Now, you said something about throwing money. So let's just talk about that for a second. I just want to be clear. Even in a case where the guy is yanking the tallis away from the other person, he's not planning not to pay for it. Okay, let's be clear. He's planning to pay for it. So what's going through his mind that says, this guy's already got it in his basket, he's already paid for it, and I'm going to jump in and pay for it and take it. Why? What would convince him to do that? I need it more. I need it more than him. Okay, let's unpack that for a second. I need that more than he needs it. So it doesn't. No. It does. If it's unique. One second. Unique is another whole consideration. Unique is not.
So you don't think there's.
I'm saying unique is not a common case. We need a common case. Okay. If you're telling me that the item is a very unique item and it's a rare opportunity, correct. Different case. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a common case. Common case. So let's go back a step to this idea of so-called survival. This idea of I need it more. So let's be honest. Does that happen? It happens all the time, right? How often do you have the person who cuts the line? Why? Because my time is more valuable than your time. How often is the person, the famous last kosher to Pesach cheese in the aisle, and there you go, everybody's diving and fighting, and it's whatever the case is, right? So those are, and that's not necessarily scarcity per se. It's the current situation. Now let's use that example, okay? Let's use the kosher to Pesach cheese example. So there are these two Jewish women, bless them, arrive at the same time, and there's one block of the kosher to Pesach cheese left. And everybody knows if you don't have kosher to Pesach cheese, you cannot survive the week. It's written in the Torah. So that's it. There's this huge eruption over this last thing. So let's just assume that the one woman, because this will help us understand the case, right? Let's just assume the one woman already has the cheese in her hand, and the other woman is yelling bloody murder, and it's not right. So the person who's now got the cheese, what do you think she's going to say to this other woman?
Assuming rationality.
No, I'm not. I'm not assuming rationality. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not assuming rationality. This person has got the block of cheese in her hand. Another person is screaming and screaming at her. What do you think she's going to say?
I had it first in its mind.
I had it first in its mind. What else? I need it more than you do. It's not going to go down so well, right? What do you mean you need it more than me? I need it more. You don't know how many guests I'm having. It's not going to go down so well. What is the best way for her to deflect now? Say, stop going crazy. Why?
No English.
Why? Because just go to the other shop. So this is not the only place that sells kosher to Pesach products. Just go down the block. There's another place that sells kosher Pesach products. Try your luck there. Don't make your issue my issue. I happen to get in a nanosecond before you, and I've got this cheese right now. So if you don't like the fact that I've got it, go down the block. That's going to be the psychology here. The psychology is not the fact that I think I have the rights to take something you've paid for. The psychology is, if this is something you could sell, you could buy it somewhere else.
But if someone had it in their possession, why would they ever give it up?
That's not the point. We're asking what's the rationale? What's the rationale of the person who believes they can argue for it? That's all we're looking at right now. What is the psychology of the person who believes that they can argue the case that they should have something that somebody else already paid for?
Is that the person that's already holding it?
They're both holding it.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Remember, that's critical. They have to both be holding it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. In our case, if they're not both holding it, it's a non-starter. They're both holding it. We don't know how they got to be holding it. So we're assuming the possibility that they got to be holding it because the one guy was a Johnny-come-lately who figured that he had the rights to latch on. We want to know, how did he think that he had the rights to latch on? You know how? Because he thought, if I manage to arm wrestle this guy, I'm not making him lose. He can go down the road and get another one. But if he finds a Tallis in the street, you can't say, go find another Tallis in the street. This is a one-time wonder. Either you get it or you don't. I'm not such a rogue that I'm going to grab something away that a guy could never replace. Okay, so we'll come back. We'll visit it in the actual language of the Gemorah.
At the same time.
Again.
I'm coming in later. No?
Correct. Again, we don't know what happened. There are no witnesses. It's one person's word against the other. We're testing to see if maybe they did not grab it at the same time. That's what we're testing. They walked into the basin, you're correct. By the time they walk into the basin, they're both holding on to it, that's for sure.
The one kid
No. Kids.
Kids. The mentality of it.
Right. Okay, but it can't be kids.
But I mean the mentality. I got it first.
Right, exactly.
What else do you need?
I'll go to first.
No, I got it first. No, I got it first.
I will smack
Okay,
you.
exactly. There we go.
Well, sorry.
That's assault.
All right. Let's have a look at the words that we're going to need for this piece. The first word we need for this section is damim. What are damim?
Yeah.
Damim? What does damim mean? Dam in Hebrew is blood, yes. And this is not Hebrew. This is Aramaic. However, what's that? Mayim is water, correct? Now, damim, the reason that this word is called damim is because this is, for many people, a matter of life and death. Damim is money in Aramaic. Right? Damim. Money. Okay? Then we have the root Yud, Hey, Base, which is again Aramaic, so it's unlikely that you know what it is. It means to give. Yahiv, he gave. Yehavinon, we gave. Yehivna, I gave. Okay? So, Yahiv. Have you ever heard people tell you that the word, that ahava, which means love, is related to the word have, which is to give? Okay? So, Yud Hey Vase is the root to give. Next word is a good word. Good word to know. It's a word that is very similar to another word that's in the Pesach Seder. Here the word is hashta. You know where you know this from? Achenu. Achenu, right? Achenu. Hashta bagala. Right? So what does hashta mean? Hashta means now. Hashta means now. Aramaic. The nice thing about the word Yud Hey Vase is that it appears in Hebrew as well. V'la'luka shtei bonos have. It's a verse in Tanakh that says the leech has two children. The names of the two children are Give and Give. In other words, that's a leech. A leech just says give and give. No give and take. Give and give. Okay? All right. So hashta means now. Now the next word is part of a series that we should probably develop, and that is the possessive series. So le is two, didi me. Didi me. Didach you or yours. So me or mine. Didi is mine really. Right? Didach yours. Didan ours. Like the popular Chabad song, Didan Notzach. Victory is ours, which is actually a quotation from the Gemorah that when the Jewish people come out carrying their lulav on Sukkot, so we're saying, one version is Inun Nitzuchaya, we are the victorious ones. Others, Didan Notzach. Victory is ours. Didei his. Didhu theirs. Okay, so it's just very valuable to know. It's a possessive term, right? D mine. Next word. Be very careful with this word, because the same root in Hebrew has a somewhat different meaning to this root in Aramaic. Shin, kuf, lamed. So, what's a shekel exactly? What is a shekel?
Money.
A weight.
Away.
A weight. Oh, don't write that, that's the Hebrew. So the Hebrew root shin kuf lamed is to weigh. Mishkal is weight. A shekel was worth its weight in silver. That's how it comes to be currency. Now let's talk Aramaic for a second. What do people want to do with shekels? Take them. So shin kuf lamed is the root in Aramaic for take. Have you ever heard this expression? Shakla vataria. Ever heard that expression? Shakla vataria is the give and take of an halachic debate. Shakla is to take. Shakla vataria is the give and take of a debate. No, that's no. Okay, next one. Aleph Zayin Aleph Zayin Lamed or Zayin Yud Lamed means to go. Okay? To go. Like the expression Azlos lekarta, when you go to a city, halach benimuseha, follow the customs of that city. Or in the secular version, when in Rome. Right? It's actually in next week's parasha, that expression. You'll see it in Rashi, I think it's in Rashi, in next week's parasha. Azlos lekarta, halach benimuseha. When the angels came to Abraham, they ate, because when you come to a city, you have to follow the protocols of the city. So in the human environment, you eat. So when you're an angel visiting Abraham, you have to eat. That's where the phrase is used. Okay, this is a Hebrew word. Tes Reish Ches. Not the man. Terach is with a tof. This is Toy Reach Tircha. In modern conversation, people often say, would you mind doing this for me if it's not a tircha? Not a hassle. Exactly. Not a hassle. We talk about tircha de tzibura, that when you're davening with a minyan, you have to be conscious of things that may be disruptive to the minyan, or more correctly, a hassle for the minyan. Tircha de tzibura, a hassle for the minyan. So, for example, if you've got exactly 10 people in the minyan, and one person decides that they have to do this elaborate spiritual amidah that takes 10 minutes longer than everybody else, tircha de tzibura, that's a hassle for the community. It's not acceptable behavior, because everybody's got to wait for you to finish so they can continue. It's not acceptable behavior.
Is it the Baal Tzibur, or is it?
It doesn't matter who it is. If you have to wait for somebody, you have to wait. Okay, so tes reish ches means to hassle yourself. That's what it means. Hassle yourself. And the next word, which is an extremely common word throughout the Bava series in the Gemorah, Zayin Beis Nun. Right? Zayin Beis Nun means to buy. You should know this. Chad Gad Yah. The Zavin, exactly.
Okay.
Right? Right?
That's my favorite song.
So there you go. The Zavin that he bought. So there's a good way to remember it. The Zavin that he bought. So Zayin Beis Nun is the root for buying. Okay. So now we're ready to actually look at the Gemara itself. We started off last time saying, tzricha, that it is necessary for the Mishnah to tell me the law that they both have to take an oath, and still we have to get to the point of why they have to take the oath in the particular formula that they have to use. We're still going to get there, but the fact is they both have to take an oath. So we said, why is that tzricha? It's necessary because Itana, last time we said, Itana Metzia, had it only taught me the case of Metzia, Havamina would have thought that Metzia, Hudaram Rabban Shvale, that it's only in the case of Metzia that the sages made you take an oath. Why? Because the person's going to say that the guy's not losing money. So what's the difference if I take part of his Tallis? Following on from that, this piece, the and other side of the equation. Itano mekachomemka. Had our Mishnah only told us the law in the case of two people arguing about who's the rightful buyer of the Tallis, mekachomemka is a case of a sale. So the Itano had it taught in our Mishnah, mekachomemka only a debate around a purchase, then I would say, Hu deramu rabbanon shvualei. It's only in that case that the rabbis imposed an oath on the two parties to squeeze the truth out of them. Again, why do the rabbis impose an oath? Because we suspect that somebody's not telling the truth. And we expect that when you give them the onus of an oath, that will force them to have to come clean. So it's only in the case of a purchase, that the sages imposed an oath onto them. Why? Mishum, correct? Mishum. Anybody remember what Mishum is? Mishum because the Moireva Omar, because the person is going to justify and say, right? Moire, we said, Rashi tells us, is Moire Heter. He's going to illustrate a heter, which is basically an excuse for himself. In this case, an excuse. The Moireva Omar is going to say as follows. Chavroi. Okay, what's the root of that word? Chaver. What's a chaver? Okay, it's not my friend. We're fighting in the base team. My colleague, what am I calling my esteemed colleague, right? Chavroi, so that, as you can see there, the suffix aleph yud makes it possessive mine. Chaver sheli, basically. My friend, Domei. What's Domei? Money. Ka Yohev. What's that? He gave money. He gave money. Now you got this word over here, ka. No, zavin is bought. Yahav is give. He is given money. We haven't. Yes, there is a difference. There's a difference. He's given money. Now we've got this word here, ka. Do you see that? This word ka. Sometimes it appears as an independent word, as it does here. Sometimes it appears just as a prefix. It is what we call. It's when you put this ka in front of something. Technically, grammatically, it turns it into an infinitive. Okay? So kayoev, he's giving money. Right? That's what he's doing, he's giving money. So this guy is giving money. Now I want to ask you, does paying money conclude a transaction?
No.
Definitely not.
You mean there's got to be a Kenyan,
Number one, the other person has to accept the money. And then there has to be a Kenyan. What's relevant to our conversation, because there is a Kenyan, they're both holding the Tallis, so they had to have done a Kenyan. But you can't just throw money at somebody and say that is a sale. They have to accept your money. So this guy says, listen, my friend put down money. He gave money. But you know what? There are no, and I know, which is the Aramaic version of ani, there and ano, domeka yehivna. I also gave money. There's no difference over here between the two of us. There's no difference between the two of us. I gave money. He gave money. Now,
still in the context of this having
yes.
And it's the oath that they've been forced to give.
The oath will get them out of it, but we're not there yet.
And you would have thought that you wouldn't need an oath for the one
Correct.
scenario.
Correct.
But for this argument.
Correct. Well, no, this is why you would think this is the case that needs the oath. So what did you say, Rowan, originally? What's the motivation that a person says that I deserve what you've bought because I need it, right? That's what you said. Here it is. Hashto now. De tzricha. De. What's de? What's de? Just the prefix de. That. De that. Tzricha. It is necessary. Right, hashto now. De that. Tzricha, it is necessary. Le for. DD for me. In other words, what's he saying? He's saying, now listen, I need this thing. You don't understand how badly I need this block of cheese for Pesach. I need this thing. So this is what I'm going to do. This is the thought process we're suspecting. Ashkelei. What's ashkelei? Okay, so shin kuf lamed is take. So the prefix of a verb is I will. Ashkol, I will take. Ashkelei, I will take it.
For myself.
Ano, for me. I'm going to take it. Vechavroi, and
My friend.
my esteemed colleague and dear friend, right? Lei zil. So what's zil? Go. Lei zil, let him go.
Somewhere else.
Litrach. What's le? Le is the prefix. Le is to hassle. Let him go hassle. Lisbon to buy it somewhere else. It's a free market. This is not the only tallis that exists in the entire planet. So I need a tallis right now. You don't understand. I've got a bar mitzvah to get to. I've got doctor's orders. I'm immunocompromised. I don't know. Yeah, these are Jewish people. You can understand what kind of things they're going to come up with. I need this tallis. He can go to the other shop down the road. And he'll get his money back because the shopkeeper's an honest guy. He's not going to take cash from both of us. So he'll get his money back. He's not going to lose anything. He's just going to have a hassle.
Can't they both make the same order?
Of course they could. That's why they both have to take the oath.
If you're mensch, you'll say, I'll take that.
Avol.
Because you only get a quarter of the cloth.
Avol. But Metzia, in a case where they claim they found the Tallis. Now this expression we had already last time. Deleka lemeimar hachi. That leka, you cannot le to meimar say hachi. In other words, you cannot use this line of thinking in a metzia. What line of thinking to say, go down the road and buy it somewhere else? You can't tell that to somebody who's found something. Imagine somebody wins the lottery and you take their ticket and say, go win another lottery. It's that kind of thing. Say, I found a Tallis. No, go find another Tallis. That's ridiculous. That's the ball that flies into the stands, and then the greedy person who yanks it out of his hands and says, you'll get the next fly ball. It doesn't work that way. So we can appreciate how whichever case was stuck into the Mishnah would have left us thinking, in the other case, Eimaloi, I would say you don't have to administer an oath in the other case, because the whole reason for an oath is in case the person's rationalized an inappropriate behavior. And if they couldn't have rationalized that behavior, there's no need for an oath. Therefore, tzricha. Therefore, we needed the Mishnah to spell out both cases so that we'd be clear exactly how these laws apply, and regardless of what the potential psychology is, the law remains the same. Two people come into a court, both with currently equal ownership of, at least visible ownership, of an item. We will always follow the same procedure. We're not going to slice and dice it depending on what potential thinking they might have had.
So the oath is needed in the case of purchase and not in the case of foul.
No, the oath is needed in both cases. That's the tzricha. Tzricha means, the Mishnah told me, both the case of ani mitzasiyah and ani mitzasiyah, which is the case of people arguing over something they found, and the Mishnah is telling me the case of kulo sheli and kulo sheli, which is a case of people arguing over something they bought. The Mishnah had to tell me both cases because the oath is required in both cases.
But I understand the one case.
Yes, because you weren't here last week when we did the other case. But both cases have that rationalization. Both cases have that, right? Both cases have that potential of how you might have excused it. So
you need an oath on both cases.
you need an oath in both
or
cases.
finding.
Correct. In both cases.
It's acceptable to them to ask people to take the oath because they're not actually lying. Is that right?
Exactly. They're not lying.
Rationalizing, they're not lying.
That's right. But the oath will expose if they are lying. So the purpose of the oath is to give us clarity that nobody here is doing something which is dishonest.
Yeah, it will expose because they won't take it. Is that
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
That's it. It's
Exactly.
Not gonna take
Correct. Exactly. So again, even their rationalization is not a bald-faced lie. It's just a rationalization. This is their moment of conscience. Are you comfortable enough making that claim under oath? Ooh, maybe not. Okay, great. We've solved the problem. So we're not exposing them as liars. We're exposing them to themselves.
Gets rid of the rationalization.
Correct. Exactly.
Because you're assuming the people are actually, even though they might have an opportunity to rationalize it, when they're now faced with the oath, disappears.
Correct.
They're from people.
Correct. Exactly. We do not.
The assumption is they're good people.
Exactly. The assumption is good people
The oath
with
is
a bias and a
real
blind
thing.
spot.
The oath is a
That,
real thing.
exactly. The oath is the leveler. The oath is the moment of clarity. So when you got a chance, just do that little summary table at the end of what the rationalization would have been in either case, because that's just like an easy way to have a bird's eye view of how we got to where we got to. Before you turn the page. This is a rhetorical... No, we're not. But this is a rhetorical question. Do you imagine that the Gemorah is satisfied at this point?
Of course.
Well, no, don't be cynical about it. What do you mean, of course not? The Gemorah can be satisfied.
We've learned so far.
That is completely... it is completely acceptable that the Gemorah could be satisfied.
In theory.
But it's not.
Yeah, in theory.
Okay, fine. So you're comfortable that the Gemorah is not satisfied? Why not? So let's just trace what we've done. What we've done so far is We first made a proposal that the whole first section of the Gemorah was a single case, but the Gemorah had to say it both using the language of Metzia and the language of Kula Shali to clarify that you cannot claim to have found something until it's in your hands, which is valid. We did not reject the principle. We just said that's not the reason the Mishnah had to say it in those words. That led us to this conversation, which is why did the Mishnah have to say it in two separate cases? Must be that it is two separate cases. In which case we asked, well, why do you need two separate cases? So we explained, because there's a rationale that you'd use if you found something and you think it's acceptable to grab it when somebody else is there as well. And there's a rationale that you might have thought in the case of buying something where you could piggyback onto somebody else's purchase and kind of get the thing for yourself. And the Shavua is supposed to clarify that. We've put it to bed. We are now no longer going to question these principles. These principles are now accepted. We now understand that this is how the Mishnah is working. However, something that we've said in one of these two cases should leave you wondering, how could that actually have happened? In other words, you're telling me that this is what happened, and or this is potentially what happened, and that's why we have to administer the Shavua? So you're saying potentially it could be that two guys grabbed onto a Tallis together. You're saying potentially it could be that two guys purchased an item together. One of those cases doesn't really sit well. Which case? Why not? Exactly. You see, as long as you have two people fighting over something they found in the street, it makes sense that you've got one biased person arguing with another biased person, and there is no objective third party to give us any clarity. But surely, purchasing, by definition, means third party. And if there's a third party, where is he? Why are we not hearing from him? Why are we just leaving it to the word of this guy versus that guy?
He doesn't care. He gets money fast.
Okay, well, in that case, he's not a good man. Okay?
Are they saying they've already bought or they're about to buy?
No, they're saying they already bought. Each person is claiming they bought.
One's lying.
Well,
So you just go to the purchase.
well, if they're lying, their oath will expose them. Remember, our premise over here is nobody's lying. They just have a blind spot to their own bias. They're not lying. Lying implies malice. They're not lying.
Could be greedy.
Yes, they absolutely could be greedy. Absolutely. But there's a difference between greed and lying. Okay.
But they both believe that they've exchanged money to a seller.
They both believe they have paid for an item that is now rightfully theirs. Surely the most logical thing to do now is pull in the third party. Hello? Who did you sell it to? No? Is that not the easiest fix? Bring the guy in and say, who did you sell it to? Okay, so indeed, exactly. Indeed. And not only because not only because this is something that we have to resolve, but because there is, and we're not going to do it obviously in the full what do you call that? I just realized now that the marking on the side of it is a bit misleading. It's supposed to be kasha and then an answer, and I just put kasha. So anyhow, don't be misled. So what was I saying? Yes, there's a beautiful difference of opinion between Rashi and Tosfos about how to unpack this little piece over here. We're not going to do it inside. We're not at the stage yet where we're going to start learning full Rashis and Tosfos and all that. But it is going to be interesting just to pick out some of the core differences between how they understand what's happening over here. So I just wanted you to make a little correction, if you don't mind, on the page. The first two lines are the kasha. The first, can you see there's like a long red line with an exclamation, which is supposed to represent a kasha? It's actually only the first two lines which are a kasha, and then the rest of it is the answer to that kasha. So just maybe clarify that for your own ease of reference. It will be easily corrected on the PDFs. So if you want an update, Okay.
The rest is the answer.
The rest is the answer. So we're just... What's that?
When you publish the book.
One day in 14 years. The book on the first chapter. So anyway, so what we're going to do is this. In the interest of time, because we won't manage to unpack this entire section, let's just understand the question. The question is going to be posed a little differently to how we've said it. We said, Where's the third party, right? That's what we've said. Where's the third party? Now, what's always fun about Gemorah is that the Gemorah may say something in a way that is a little bit more ambiguous than we'd feel comfortable. And it would be great for us if the Gemorah's question was, why don't you get the seller to testify? But that's not what the Gemorah is going to say. Instead, the Gemorah is going to say, if it's a purchase, why don't we see who the shopkeeper took the money from? Now that's a loaded statement. That's a loaded statement, right? Who did the shopkeeper take the money from? And that doesn't imply that we're necessarily asking him. Remember, we don't believe these guys are liars. So possibly that's actually saying we should ask them. How's that for a thought? Right? Exactly. Except here you just okay. Tell us honestly in front of a court of law. Who did he take the money from? You say it was you. You say it was you. Tallis. Who did he take the money from? Because we don't believe that he's dishonest either. We don't believe that guy took double. We believe he only took money from one person. And so if we could just clarify who that one person is, surely that settles everything for us.
But you're still asking the two litigants.
I'm saying the statement is ambiguous. It says, let us check who he took the money from. It doesn't say check with who. I'm saying maybe it means check with them. Maybe. If you don't assume them to be liars, it's a fair thing, right? So that's the question the Gemorah is going to ask next. The way the Gemorah is going to answer it is very interesting. We're not going to have time for that right now. So I think we're actually just going to hold at this point with that question. Give it some thought. Think about the variations of what are the best ways to check who he took the money from, and try to think of a possibility of why that might not work.
Rabbi, this